This is Tibin Thomas from Arya Legal, here with Brigadier Premanand Hejmadi. This is a wonderful personality who I could tell is a person who has served the nation for 33 years across the length and breadth of the country. And Brigadier Premanand Hejmadi has joined the National Defence Academy in 1957 and commissioned in the Indian Army during June 1961, and it was into the Army Ordnance Corps. Served, again, like I mentioned, for 33 years, according to the country, for the country, through the length and breadth of the country, held various appointments on staff, command and training, and he was retired in 1993. The second career of Brigadier Premanand Hejmadi in Semiconductors, working in the design and manufacturing of integrated circuits ever since. Took an interest in spiritual field, came under the influence of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba in 1961 and have been with him since then. So now here we are trying to understand his life experience and we have some questions for him.
I would like to start with saying Koti Pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. In the course of the next 10 minutes or so, I propose to speak on what I have learned from the environment, elders, and teachings in the process of growing up. The focus being on the subject of Bharatiya culture in our day-to-day life. From the birth to the present day. What I speak is totally based on my personal experience over the last 82 plus years. I am indeed very fortunate to have been born in Bharat. I grew up in an ordinary middle-class family with my God-fearing parents and grandfather, showing me the values by which one should live. These, I could see, were the ones derived from the scriptures and imparted by most parents to their children. Until a certain age, I stuck by them. I remembered them when I came to the crossroads in my life, when on one side, I knew what was the right course of action which demanded courage, and on the other, the easier option when I could trade my values to go ahead. Many times, the courage deserted me, and I took the easier option, the wrong one. But by the grace of God, more often than not, I was able to stand by them. Responsibility came to my shoulders as a teenager and continues in varying degrees to this day. Until then, I was in a sheltered environment. It was only when I started interacting with the environment that I became aware of the forces of human nature, which were prevailing, some good and some not so good. Now, when I look back, I am able to see the changes that have taken place in the environment over the decades, sadly for the worse. I grew up in an atmosphere of festivals associated with religious and scriptural learnings, had friends from various faiths at the growing stage, and later the army took me into the depths of all the major faiths being followed in Bharat today. Religion is a deeply personal affair. It is about being and becoming, and not about philosophizing and dividing. Sadly, it has been weaponized to such an extent that all negativity in the human being has boiled to the surface. No country has been spared. Religion is a necessary ingredient for a human being. And as Swami Vivekananda put it, if one removed religion from man, all that remained was brute. What we are seeing around us seems to indicate that the spirit of the religion has been removed from the equation. Today, in the technological era, where all equipment is marketed with user manuals, warnings, and disclaimers, often fatter than the equipment itself, the most complex of the equipment on this planet, the human being, does not have a user manual. The sages and rishis of several thousands of years ago have left us a rich legacy of Upanishads, Vedas, Brahma Sutras, and the Bhagavad Gita, to name a few, which could be termed as user manuals. Brilliant stars like Ramanujacharya, Madhavacharya, and R.D. Shankaracharya have postulated philosophies which have stood the test of time and stand as beacons to all of mankind as to our raison d'etre, and spell out the codes of conduct of dharma, which are intimate to and the right of every human being. Our veil of ignorance has only to be moved aside. They also advise us on how to navigate the rough and turbulent seas of samsara. When we have such a plethora of choices for leading a dharmic way of life, why then do we stray away? Adharma could range from bad habits of smoking, etc., all the way to the acceptance of illegal gratification, amassing of wealth by foul means, and so on. The list is pretty long. The behavior of the individual is related to the values that he nurtures. High values bring up the behavior to correspond to it. And as the values vary, so too the behavior to keep pace with it. As I learned about dharma, the level of values went higher up, and the behavior too correspondingly improved. The use of foul language reduced and finally stopped. Smoking and drinking petered out. Non-vegetarianism was surrendered, and a new look at corrupt practices took form. These aspects map the path to achieving the very object of being born and living. To get back home, to which we are and have always been a part of, and not a part. That is mainly to end the cycle of birth and rebirth. The temptation to amass wealth by acceptance of concessions, gifts, and bribes were on offer all the while in my line of work. Had my values dropped, I would have been a criminal. What prevented that? The fear of sin, the values instilled in me in this life, as also residue from past lives, gave me the courage to withstand the temptations. No doubt I paid the price for it, but at least I sleep soundly without anxiety. Coming to the present, the Kali Yuga has come to an end, and the golden age or the Satyuga has commenced. This may not appear so, seeing the wide varying levels of morality prevailing among administrators of society, such as the bureaucracy, the politicians, law enforcement agencies, and of course the general population. The quality of character can be viewed at the traffic light in a city. No unit of the administration, from the almost the very top to the very bottom of the administrative hierarchy, has been spared. One politician allegedly has wealth distributed in several countries. To what end? Who can enjoy this? Is he or she internally living in peace? What does this transition signal to me? I must clear my karmic data soonest. It has signaled to me that my fellow man, like me, is a divine being, and like me is cloaked in ignorance. I am hoping and praying that our leaders, lawmakers, and law enforcers clear their karmic slates and return Bharat to its original state of Ramraj. I end with a prayer saying, Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu, Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu, Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Jai Hind.
Doesn't religion in any form portend to a set of rules or do's and don'ts, and thus form the basis of principles of law and morality?
It's a rather deep question, because almost all religions have a set of do's and don'ts to be followed. With the sole objective, what is the objective of that? The sole objective of these do's and don'ts are with achieving heaven or bliss. The path from here to there is interpreted by intermediaries from their points of view, from the individual points of view, in between what is said, what is written, to what is interpreted varies from depending on the individual's point of view. These generally form the framework of morality. What is immoral in one country, religion, or village may not be so in another one, such as nudity or the approach to social items such as marriage, premarital sex, and so on. These aspects do find their way in some form into laws. While one set of laws are set by divine intervention, the others are set up by the citizenry of the village, the country, or whatever. That's
Morality and modern legal system are at variance on many issues. What the society sees as morally wrong may not be so in law. Isn't that corrupting the moral fabric of the society?
The legal system derives its strength from the people. The people who are represented in the lawmakers' body are the spokespersons. They sit together and formulate the laws, which are then passed on to the judiciary, who ensure that they are followed. Morality and legal systems are at variance because the lawmakers have not considered the opinions of the majority of the people or the population they represent. There would be instances of differing injunctions for different parts of the society. It is then the lawmakers to decide what course of action to take for the larger good. If society does something is morally wrong, that aspect must find its way into law. If it is not doing so, then someone is not doing his or her job for what he or she was elected.
What's your perception of faith, belief, and personal law? How are these impacting the legal system in India?
Now, that is a real tough question because the equation of faith and belief, while faith appears, on the face of it, faith and belief are interchangeable. But actually, I think there is a bit of a difference. From belief comes faith. To illustrate, how does it sound if I were to say, I believe that what our Prime Minister says, I have faith in what he will accomplish it, that he will accomplish it. That is one way. I believe in what he has planned, and I have faith that he will complete it. On the other hand, if I was to say similarly, I believe in what Mr. X says, but I have no faith in his ability to accomplish it. I've used the same words, but the meanings of the two are totally different. I don't believe a word of what Mr. Y says is the third aspect of the use of faith and belief. Now, when you bring these two aspects, belief and faith, they are personal items. I have a faith and a belief that is personal to me. You have a faith and belief that is personal to you. That is that. But when you bring it into personal law, then it changes its dimensions. In that, my faith and belief, I cannot impose on you. The moment I try to impose my faith and belief on you, or vice versa, then it is society which should have a look at it and decide on whether it's right or wrong. I would be try to impose on another by any other means. Then I would be transgressing both the written as well as the unwritten personal law. Personal law, as I understand it, is how I behave and act with other persons in society within the framework of laid down laws of the land. These laws are framed and changed to conform to changing times and social norms. They should be applicable to every person abiding within that region. So that is the way. Personal law, I would differentiate it. Faith and belief goes into personal law. In that, what is personal to me, the moment you are involved in it, it changes. It has to be governed by certain principles. That's my take.
That was very well said, Brigadier Prem Hejmadi. So now we have few more questions, and we would like to get to know and small, opinion about the perspective of your life that you shared to us initially. With us having few more questions, where you can shortly describe us with the concerns and questions that we have for you. As a youngster and as you grew up, could you tell us the lessons that you learned in the process of growing up and during this career phase of yours that you have gone through, Mr. Prem Hejmadi?
It's an interesting question that takes my mind back all the way to the time when I was a 16-year-old. It happened in Japan. I was going to the Haneda airport in Tokyo, from Tokyo to the Haneda airport, and we had a Korean driver. He and I were going to the airport to pick up somebody. It was snowing heavily, almost a blizzard. There was nobody on the road. And as we reached a traffic light, it was red, and the driver stopped at the red light. So I looked around, not a human being, not a car, nothing in sight, only snow. And I told the driver, I said, look, the light is red, why don't we go? There's no one, there's nobody around, why don't we go? He said, no, boy-san, putting his finger on his nose the way that they point to themselves, I am there. That was a revelation to me, because one is never alone. There is always somebody who is doing the watch, that is me. The value of who I am is a shift from a self-centered, earlier it used to be me. The shift from me to we started taking place at about the age of 18 or 19. And I'm still striving to know who I am. All that I thought was me are appellations or later. Character and integrity are prime ingredients of a person in every walk of life. That is the lessons I learned while I grew up. In short.
That was very interesting. So also, why would religion be a necessary ingredient in the life of a human being?
One needs an anchor to prevent being tossed about by the storms of samsara. Every human being seeks eternal happiness. To some, it is acquisition of wealth, or partying and drinks, or gambling, etc., etc. But each of them has a beginning and an end. Religion, in its true spirit, points the way to the objective. God per se has the potential to generate a "my God is better than your God" feeling, leading to undesirable results and losing sight of the very object of religion. One sage prefers the use of the term being, as it covers all creatures and largely eliminates the me and the mine aspect of religion. I've heard one statement that the beginning and the end is unconditional divine love and light. And if we had that, or access to that, then there would be no necessity for religion, as we would have been sitting in the very objective that we want to achieve. So that would be the necessary ingredient of life. It is an anchor. It keeps one stable. That's my thought on the subject.
Very interesting. Also, you had mentioned about user manual. So now, would you just tell us that why do you feel human beings are the most complex creation or an equipment, and why we are a complex without a user manual?
If you examine what the present day world, you have a small iPhone or a smartphone, and you have a thick user manual. The iPhone is a complex equipment. It has got its functions. It's very complex. But now take a look at the human body. It's complex. Its complexities are not known even today, that what the capabilities of this human being, this human machinery is not known. Given these complexities, we do not know how to handle it. We do not know what are the total potentials. How can we employ and maximize its use? How can we put it to the best use that for our own purpose, for achieving eternal bliss and happiness? Now, when we are born, as we come with our own as I would put it, as a CD with recordings from past lives, and they do give an influence in the present day world. Where do we get the user manuals? We have something by the ways of the Upanishads, the Vedas, Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutras, which can be loosely termed as user manuals. But other than that, we do not have it. So there is a necessity for us, each of us, to see how this machinery functions. What makes it a thing? What is it that we want? And therefore, I feel that something by way of a user manual would help every one of us.
Very well said. And what are the choices one has to lead a dharmic way of life, as per you?
Intuitively, we know what is right and what is wrong. Intuitively, we know that. This is further reinforced by society, friends, peers, and the laws. We have, each one of us, have been faced with situations when always offer a solution or a course of action. The right one, which is normally a very difficult choice, and an easier path. The choice, therefore, is for you to make. To give an example, you're caught by the police jumping a red light. You have an option: pay the penalty, which could be very high, or try and bribe the policeman for a small sum. Which would you choose? You come to a crossroad. The light is red and there is no traffic. You have a choice. Should I cross or should I wait for the light to turn green? These are the easy ones, and the list goes on. If I'm faced with a situation in an official capacity where I offered a bribe which I can almost not refuse, how do I go around it? That is the point. That is where the choices of the foundation of your dharmic this thing comes into play. If the foundation is strong, then you are able to overcome that temptation and take the dharmic way of life. So basically it boils down to individual character at any and every level, starting from a plain ordinary citizen all the way to the top, Chief Justice of India, Prime Minister, or whatever appointment it is. Character and integrity are absolutely essential, vital for the health of the nation.
That was very brilliantly said once again. Now comes the interesting part. With what you mentioned with your experience of life, we would like to know more about what is Kali Yuga. Why do you feel that, the Kali Yuga has come to an end when the essence of Kali Yuga is all around us?
My knowledge on this subject is very scanty. But this much I know, that there have been yugas which have been by the people who knew, have put numbers into the various yugas, the Dwapar Yuga, the Treta Yuga, the Kali Yuga, and now the Sat Yuga. They have numbers. I do not know how or where they get it from, but they've got it anyway. Kali Yuga basically is supposed to be an era of darkness. As you can see, the total existence has been divided into time periods, and each of these time periods have been underscored by the behavior of the population in that time period. There was a Ram Raj, where houses were not locked, etc., etc. Today, the situation is different. However, my belief in Kali Yuga, I believe that the Kali Yuga has come to an end and the golden age or the Sat Yuga has started. Of course, I mean, it is debatable. If you say otherwise, you are perhaps as good as right as I am. One may. How? There is so much strife. If you look around, there are wars, there is famine, there is immigration, there are climatic changes and natural calamities and so on. I would say, now you would say, if that is the golden age, then how come all these things are happening? But the momentum will continue, and we are in that stage where the momentum is carrying us through, and the moment the last of the Kali Yuga event takes place, the Sat Yuga will have emerged in its totality. That is my take on the subject, my tuppence worth, as it were. So that is this thing. It's being sorted and sifted by nature.
Very interesting. And coming to an end, we have one last question that we would like to know from you. That would be like, what would remain if religion would be removed from mankind? And how does one define religion?
I wouldn't venture to define religion, but I would like to quote Swami Vivekananda on the subject of, if religion were removed from mankind, what remains is brute, plain brute. If you take a look at the situation in the world today, we are using religion as a weapon. It is not, as I see it, it is not, the religion is just the beginning of something much more. The religion is a foundation from which I take off to higher regions. Any religion you take will always talk. The Bible says man is made in the image of God. Are we behaving like that? If we look at the Shastras, they say man is divine. Are we displaying divinity? If you take a look at, we want bliss. How are we seeking bliss? It is all the same. So coming back to your question, what would remain if religion were removed? There would be total chaos. There would be brute force, and we'll be just reduced to animals. That is my take on the subject.
It was an honor for me to be with you, Brigadier Premanand Hejmadi. So I take this time to thank you and appreciate this time of yours for us to understand the experience you had in your lifetime. And thank you once again very much for sharing this wonderful time with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jipin. I would also like to thank Arya Legal for this opportunity to express my inner thoughts. I would have liked to speak at greater lengths because the subject is vast and very much each individual has a point of view, and Arya Legal gave me that opportunity to project whatever thoughts I had on the subject. Thank you. Thank you very much, Arya Legal.